On December 11th, 2008, a 70-year-old man walked into his son's office and said 5 words that would destroy thousands of lives. It's all been one big lie. Within 48 hours, the FBI arrested him. Within weeks, people connected to him were dead. The number he stole? $65 billion, the largest financial fraud in human history. But here's the part that'll keep you awake tonight. The government investigated him 5 times, and found nothing. For 20 years, everyone thought their money was growing. In reality, already gone. Then one morning, thousands woke up, and their entire life savings had vanished. Within weeks, investors were bankrupt. Some died, and right now someone else is probably running the exact same scam. This is Bernard Madoff, and by the end of this video, you'll never trust a financial advisor again. Bernie Madoff wasn't a criminal mastermind from the movies. No scarred face, no evil laugh, no offshore island. He was a lifeguard who married his high school sweetheart, a guy who installed sprinkler systems to save money. In 1960, he started an investment firm with $5,000 of his own cash, not a trust fund, not stolen money, money he earned with his hands. And for 50 years, Bernie built something incredible: trust. He didn't just manage money, he managed the people who regulated Wall Street. He sat on NASDAQ's board of directors. He advised the SEC on how to catch financial criminals. Read that again. The organization whose job is to catch fraud asked Bernie Madoff how to catch fraud. It's like asking a serial killer to design a prison. And nobody questioned it because Bernie looked the part. Modest penthouse, modest car, modest life. When reporters asked about his success, he'd smile and say, "I just work hard and treat people fairly." Thousands believed him. But in 1992, something strange happened. 2 accountants in Boston were analyzing Bernie's returns and noticed something impossible. His fund made money every single month. Bull market, profit. Bear market, profit. Recession, profit. They ran the math again and again, and then they called the SEC and said, "This man is running a Ponzi scheme." The SEC investigated Bernie Madoff for the first time. Their conclusion? Nothing wrong. Case closed. This exact scenario would happen 5 more times over 16 years. 5 times someone raised the alarm. 5 times the SEC investigated. 5 times Bernie walked away clean. So what was Bernie actually doing? Here's where your jaw hits the floor. He wasn't using complex derivatives or offshore accounts or money laundering. His scam was so simple it's offensive. Bernie ran a Ponzi scheme, but he evolved it into an art form. Here's the mechanism. You give Bernie $1 million. He promises 10% returns annually. Guaranteed. Recession or boom doesn't matter. Steady 10% like clockwork. Year 1, you receive $100,000. Incredible. You tell 3 friends. Year 2, your friends invest $5 million total. They all get 10%. Everyone's ecstatic. Year 3, more investors pile in. $20 million. Bernie pays old investors with new investor money. But Bernie's genius wasn't the scam itself, it was the psychology. He didn't promise 50% returns or 100% gains, just boring, believable 10%. And his secret weapon? Exclusivity. Bernie didn't want your money. You had to beg him to take it. Country clubs whispered his name like a legend. Hedge fund managers fought for access. Steven Spielberg invested his fortune. Kevin Bacon lost everything. Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate, trusted Bernie with his foundation's money. The owner of the New York Mets had Bernie manage the team's finances. One retired teacher invested her entire pension because her sister's friend's cousin knew someone who knew Bernie. That's the power of manufactured scarcity. And Bernie had another psychological trick. He made withdrawing money emotionally painful. Not impossible, just uncomfortable. If you wanted to cash out, Bernie would look disappointed. "Don't you trust me anymore?" he'd ask, with hurt in his voice. "After all these years?" Most people couldn't handle the guilt. They kept money in. They reinvested returns. Some borrowed money to invest more. By 2008, Bernie Madoff was managing $65 billion. Except he wasn't managing anything. Here's what nobody knew until it was too late. Bernie hadn't executed a single legitimate trade in at least 13 years, possibly longer. Every monthly statement was complete fiction. Every return was paid with stolen money. He employed one man, Frank DePascali, whose entire job was creating fake documents. Every single day, Frank printed thousands of pages of fake trade confirmations, fake stock purchases, fake transaction histories. All on special paper with official-looking headers. Bernie had an entire floor of his office dedicated to the fraud. The 17th floor. Locked doors, restricted keycard access. His own sons, who worked 2 floors above running the legitimate trading business, weren't allowed inside. Employees joked about it. What happens on 17? Nobody pushed, nobody asked, because questioning Bernie Madoff seemed insane. But in September 2008, the world economy collapsed. Lehman Brothers imploded, the stock market crashed 40%, and suddenly everyone wanted their money back simultaneously. For a Ponzi scheme, this is called a death spiral. Bernie needed $7 billion immediately to cover redemption requests. He had $300 million in the bank. The math didn't work anymore. On December 10th, Bernie walked into his apartment where his sons, Mark and Andrew, were waiting. He sat down and said, "I have something to tell you. The investment business is a fraud. It's all been one giant Ponzi scheme. There's nothing left." Mark asked, "How much?" Bernie replied, "About $50 billion. Andrew vomited on the carpet. The brothers didn't sleep that night. At 8 a.m., they called a lawyer. By noon, they'd contacted the FBI. That evening, federal agents arrived at Bernie's penthouse. He answered the door in his bathrobe and said, "I know why you're here." They asked if there was an innocent explanation. Bernie shook his head and said, "There is no innocent explanation." He didn't resist arrest, didn't call a lawyer, almost seemed relieved. Later, he'd tell investigators, "I've been waiting for this day for years. The stress was destroying me." But Bernie's arrest was just the beginning of the horror. 2 years later, on December 11th, 2010, exactly 2 years after his father's confession, Mark Madoff dressed his 2-year-old son, put him to bed, walked into his living room, and hanged himself. His suicide note read, "Nobody wants to believe I didn't know. I'm better off dead." 2 years after that, Andrew Madoff died of cancer at 48. Doctors said stress accelerated the disease. Bernie's brother Peter pleaded guilty and went to prison for 10 years. His niece went to prison. Frank DePascali, the document forger, died of lung cancer before sentencing. 4 people directly connected to the fraud committed suicide. Bernie's wife, Ruth, claimed complete ignorance. She surrendered everything except $2.5 million and moved to Connecticut. Her sons refused to speak to her before they died. But the real victims weren't the Madoff family. There was Cheryl Weinstein, who ran a Jewish charity and lost her entire life savings. She had to sell her home and move into a studio apartment at 65. There was Norma Hill, 90 years old, whose pension evaporated overnight. She died in poverty. There was Thierry de la Ville-Huchet, a French aristocrat who invested his family's 200-year fortune with Bernie. On December 23, 2008, Thierry went to his Madison Avenue office, took sleeping pills, slit both wrists, and bled out on his desk. Security found him the next morning with Bernie's last statement still in his hand. 4,800 people lost money. Not millions, billions, entire lives erased. And the SEC, the organization that investigated Bernie 5 times, released a report admitting catastrophic failure. Why did they miss it? One investigator said, "We didn't think someone of Bernie Madoff's stature could be a criminal. He was too successful, too respected, too connected." That's exactly what made him dangerous. But here's the twist that breaks your brain. Remember that $65 billion number Bernie confessed to? It's not real. Well, it is and it isn't. That figure included 50 years of fake returns. The actual cash people invested was roughly $20 billion. Still, the largest fraud ever, but investigators have recovered $14 billion so far from real estate, offshore accounts, and seized assets. Which means Bernie actually stole less than Enron executives, less than banks during the 2008 crisis. So why is Bernie Madoff the most infamous financial criminal in history? Because Bernie didn't just steal money, he weaponized trust. Enron lied to shareholders, banks lied to regulators. But Bernie looked his victims in the eyes at synagogue, at dinner parties, at weddings, and lied directly to their faces for decades. He stole from Holocaust survivors, from his own family, from cancer charities, from his wife's best friends, with a smile. In 2009, Bernie pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies. The judge sentenced him to 150 years in prison. He was 71 years old. In prison, Bernie gave interviews and seemed almost peaceful. He told one reporter, "I carried this secret for so long, it's actually nice to finally tell the truth." When asked about remorse, he said, "I feel terrible about what I did. But you have to understand, I genuinely thought I could fix it. I kept thinking next quarter, I'll make it back. I truly believed I'd make everyone whole again." He never did. Bernie Madoff died in federal prison on April 14th, 2021, at 82 years old. Cause of death? Chronic kidney failure. But here's what haunts investigators. Bernie always insisted he acted completely alone. Nobody else knew. Not his wife sleeping next to him for 50 years. Not his brother working downstairs. Not his sons on the 19th floor. Investigators don't believe him. Too many fake documents. Too many locked doors. Too many convenient coincidences. But everyone who might have known the full truth, dead, imprisoned, or silent, the complete story of how one man orchestrated a $65 billion fraud died with Bernie Madoff. And here's the final twist that should terrify you. Somewhere right now, someone is running the exact same scam. They learned from Bernie's mistakes. They're more careful with the SEC. They promise smaller returns. They're more selective with investors. They're patient. And we won't discover who they are until thousands more people lose everything. Sweet dreams.